What if everything you've ever wanted wasn't something to attract, but something to remember? What if the secret wasn't about trying harder, but about finally surrendering to the law beneath all other laws? The universal K isn't just a principle, it's a turning point. One that ends the struggle and opens the door to effortless alignment with your deepest desires. This is the moment it all begins to change. Chapter 1. The moment you stop trying. There is a quiet moment at the beginning of every transformation. It doesn't always arrive with fireworks or fanfare. Often it sneaks in gently like the soft sigh after you've tried everything else. It's that moment when you no longer want to force life to cooperate, when your affirmations feel like echoes, your vision board collects dust, and your rituals blur into routine. You're not giving up, but you're not trying anymore either. That moment, it's not defeat, it's the gateway. For many, it begins with exhaustion, the kind of tire that lives in your bones, not just your muscles. You've worked hard, you've stayed positive, you've kept the faith. You've followed the steps from every manifestation teacher, every spiritual guru, every self-help video that promises this is the one. And still, reality resists. You wonder if you're broken or cursed, or perhaps the universe has forgotten your address. But what if it's none of those things? What if the universe isn't punishing you but waiting for you? Waiting for you to stop trying to control what was never meant to be controlled. Waiting for you to stop manipulating energy and start embodying truth. Waiting for you to stop chasing and finally stand still long enough to receive. This is where the true journey begins, not in effort, but in awareness. You've probably heard the phrase, you create your own reality. But no one tells you what to do when your reality keeps showing up like a stubborn loop. When the same problems keep resurfacing. When money stays just out of reach. When love slips through your fingers again and again. You keep hearing that it's all inside you, but what does that actually mean? Here's the truth most never tell you. You are not meant to manifest from striving. You are meant to manifest from alignment. And alignment has nothing to do with perfection. It has everything to do with presence. Let that land for a moment. Breathe with it. Because this is the great forgetting. In this book, this chapteris, the beginning of remembering. You see, the universal key is not something to be found. It's something to be unlocked from within. And it only turns when you're ready to stop performing for the universe and start becoming it. There is a part of you that already knows. A part of you that isn't surprised when miracles happen. That doesn't flinch when everything aligns effortlessly. That part of you has always been in tune with the field, with the source, with the energy that moves stars and atoms and desires into form. But for most of us, we've layered that knowing under years of programming. We've been taught to measure our worth by output, to associate results with effort, to grind our way toward fulfillment. We've confused motion with progress. But when it comes to the quantum, to reality creation, to bending your world around your energy trying too hard, is the surest way to block it. Let me say that again, not for your mind, but for the part of you that already knows. Trying too hard is the surest way to block what you want. Why? Because trying implies distance. Trying is a frequency of, I don't have it yet. And energy responds to frequency with mathematical precision. So when you radiate effort, the field echoes it with struggle. When you emit striving, the mirror returns circumstances that require even more effort. It's not a punishment, it's a perfect match. This is the mechanism behind the illusion. This is the secret behind why affirmations sometimes fall flat and vision boards become dusty. It's not the method that's broken, it's the signal being sent. And that signal is coming not from your mouth, but from your vibration. Not from what you say, but from what you be. Now pause and ask yourself, what am I being when I'm trying so hard? Am I being someone who trusts, someone who knows it's already done? Or am I being someone who doubts their own power, someone who's hoping, reaching, grasping at life? Here's where the shift begins. You don't need to do more. You need to become more coherent. Coherence means your thoughts, feelings, and energy all align. It means you're not saying, I'm abundant, while secretly feeling fear when you check your bank account. It means you're not visualizing love while internally bracing for abandonment. It means your words and your energy speak the same language. Because the universe doesn't respond to words, it responds to coherence. And when you reach that level of internal agreement, when your inner world stops arguing with itself, everything starts to shift around you. Reality begins to bend. Synchronicities appear. Paths open where there were once walls. Not because you earned it, but because you finally matched it. This is not magic. This is law. The universal key does not turn with force. It turns in stillness, in resonance, in surrender. And that is why so few unlock it. Not because it is hidden, but because it feels too simple to be real. We've been conditioned to believe in struggle. We've been taught that worth must be proven. We've learned that ease is laziness and trust is naivety. But those teachings were written by those who forgot. You are here to remember. This first chapter is not here to convince you. It is here to remind you. You know this truth. You've glimpsed it in those fleeting moments when you stopped chasing and suddenly things fell into place. When you let go of the outcome and the call came. When you stopped overthinking and the solution appeared, that was you momentarily becoming who you truly are. This book is not about teaching you something new. It's about helping you return to what you've always known. You were never meant to struggle for your desires. You were meant to become the version of you who naturally receives them. And you become that version not through grinding, but through remembering. So as we close this first doorway into the deeper layers of this book, let this truth settle into your being. You are already powerful. You are already magnetic. You are already the key. You don't need more proof. You need less resistance. And that starts by dropping the idea that you must try your way into a life that was always meant to flow. Breathe. Soften. Let the door begin to turn. Not with effort, but with ease. The moment you stop trying isn't the end of desire, it's the beginning of power. For so long, you've been told that your dreams are uphill battles, that you must push, pull, hustle, earn. And yet, here you are tired, perhaps even quietly defeated. But beneath that exhaustion is something sacred, a silence that says, maybe there's another way. And there is. In fact, there always was. You were born with it. You felt it when you were a child, before the world told you to be realistic. Before you were trained to seek validation, to second guess your instincts, to trade your inner knowing for outer approval. In those early years, you knew how to imagine something into your hands. You knew how to trust the unseen. You knew how to dream without doubting the dream. And then you forgot, not because you were weak, but because you were taught to forget. This is what the world does. It teaches you to abandon your natural power and replace it with performance. You're told to try harder, be better, do more. But the trying becomes a trap, a loop, an addiction to effort. You become a seeker with a broken compass, chasing things that only move farther away the faster you run. But now, the compass is turning inward, because what you seek is not ahead of you. It's already vibrating in the field around you, waiting to be received. And receiving begins not with striving, but with alignment. Let's speak plainly for a moment. The reason your manifestations stall is because they are coated in resistance. Resistance is subtle. It can sound like, What if it doesn't work? It can feel like impatience. It can show up as over-controlling every step of the journey, trying to anticipate and fix outcomes that haven't happened yet. Resistance often looks like effort, and effort often feels like the right thing to do, especially in a world that praises burnout and glorifies struggle. But the universe doesn't respond to your effort, it responds to your energy. If the dominant vibration you're carrying is frustration or fear or lack, then no matter how many affirmations you say or visualizations you repeat, the signal remains scrambled. It's like placing a beautifully crafted message in a bottle, but throwing it into a current that's going the wrong direction. So let's slow down here. Let's ask, what current are you actually floating in? When you think of your biggest desire, whether it's wealth, love, healing, or purpose, what's the emotional frequency behind it? Is it joy, anticipation, a calm inner knowing that it's done? Or is it anxious need, subtle fear, a whisper of, but what if I never get it? This is the moment to be honest with yourself, not to judge, but to see clearly. Because clarity is power, and seeing your energetic baseline is the first step to shifting it. Here's what most people miss. You don't manifest from your thoughts alone. You manifest from your dominant emotional signature. Think of it like this. Your emotions are the music. Your body is the speaker, and the universe is the dance partner. If the music is chaotic, full of static and doubt, the dance becomes disjointed. But when the music is pure, when your emotions resonate with peace, joy, confidence, the dance becomes effortless. You don't lead, you flow together. Now imagine what would happen if, instead of constantly trying to fix your reality, you focused on mastering your emotional frequency. Instead of trying to get rich, you focused on becoming the frequency of wealth. Instead of begging for love, you became the energy of intimacy, openness, and self-worth. Instead of worrying about your purpose, you walked as if your presence alone was meaningful. This is not fantasy. This is physics. This is quantum alignment. Because your outer world is not some random set of events. It is a mirror, an intelligent, sensitive, precise reflection of your inner world. And most people spend their lives shouting at the mirror, trying to change the reflection without ever touching the source. But you're here now, and you're remembering. The source is you. So how do you shift from trying to trusting, from forcing to flowing? You start with awareness. Start noticing how many decisions you make from fear, how many thoughts you think from scarcity, how many actions are born not from faith, but from panic. And then choose again, not with shame, not with guilt, with grace. Choose to stop controlling outcomes and start guiding energy. Choose to stop reacting and start responding from your higher self. Choose to stop trying to predict every step and start trusting the pull of your intuition, because the path is not revealed to those who scream the loudest. It is revealed to those who are quiet enough to hear it. And what you'll hear when the noise dies down is your own voice, the one you buried beneath effort and ego. The one that says, you already know, you already have, you already are. From that place, life moves. Opportunities emerge. Ideas drop in. People show up. Doors that once felt locked begin to open, not because you broke them down, but because you stopped pushing and the door swung inward. This is the way of the universal key. It does not demand sacrifice. It asks for surrender. It does not require perfection. It invites presence. It does not call you to prove anything. It calls you to remember everything. So as we close this first chapter and step deeper into this journey, I ask you, are you ready to stop trying? Not to give up on your dreams, but to stop chasing them as if they're outside of you. Are you ready to drop the illusion of effort and pick up the power of alignment? Because your life is not waiting for you to try harder. It's waiting for you to remember how to receive it. And receiving begins the moment you finally realize you were never supposed to struggle. You were only supposed to remember who you really are. Chapter 2. You are the frequency. Everything in existence vibrates. The universe is not solid, it is sound. It is not fixed, it is frequency. What appears to be physical form is actually energy condensed into patterns that respond to other patterns in perfect harmony or dissonance. And you, dear listener, are one of those patterns. You are not a person having an occasional energetic experience. You are energy having a temporary human one. This chapter begins with a truth so powerful it will unravel the entire illusion of effort and lack. You do not attract what you want, you attract what you are. Let that settle in. This truth is not poetic fluff. It is law. It is the unseen algorithm behind your entire life. Your thoughts may reach towards something, but your vibration determines whether it reaches back. And your vibration is not something you fake. It's not in your smile, your Instagram post, or your perfectly worded affirmation. It is what you carry in the quiet moments, the energy behind your words, the pulse beneath your actions. Everything you experience in your life is a reflection of your dominant frequency. If you've been asking, why isn't it working? This is why. It's not about how much you want it. It's about whether you're being the version of you who already has it. Think of your frequency like a radio station. You may desperately want to hear the music playing on 98.3 FM. But if you're tuned to 88.1, no amount of desire, shouting, or affirming will make it play. You don't get the music you wish for, you get the music that matches your dial. Likewise, you can't attract abundance while vibrating in lack. You can't embody love while holding on to fear. You can't experience peace while your nervous system is tuned to survival. Your job, then, is not to chase desires, but to calibrate to them, to match the signal, to become the frequency of what you seek. That's the shift. That's the key. This is where most people get stuck. They focus on action, on doing, on external manipulation because it feels tangible. Action is visible. You can track it. But energy is subtle, invisible, mysterious. It requires trust. And most of us were never taught to trust something we couldn't touch. But let me offer you this. The most powerful things in the universe are invisible. Gravity, magnetism, time, and the most magnetic humans, they are not the busiest, not the loudest. They are the ones who walk in energetic coherence, where their thoughts, emotions, and being are aligned. That alignment creates a frequency so clear, so steady, that the universe cannot help but mirror it. This is why two people can do the exact same thing with wildly different results. One starts a business and fails. Another starts the same kind of business and thrives. The difference is not talent or luck. It's frequency. One was aligned, the other was not. So how do you begin to shift your frequency? It starts with awareness. Start to observe the energy behind your choices. Are you sending that email because you're inspired or because you're afraid of being forgotten? Are you meditating to connect her to fix something that feels broken? Are you reaching for your desires from a place of trust or desperation? This inner honesty is sacred because once you see where your vibration is coming from, you can choose to shift it. And you don't shift by forcing a new thought. You shift by feeling a new truth. Feeling is the language of the universe. It's the vibrational signature you emit with every breath. And unlike thoughts, which change rapidly, feelings anchor your energy. They signal your subconscious and the field around you about what you truly expect. This is why pretending doesn't work. You can speak affirmations all day long, but if your dominant feeling is doubt, the universe will respond to that because that is your true signal. Let's get even clearer. There is a difference between saying, I am abundant with your voice and feeling scarcity in your gut. The universe doesn't care what you say, it mirrors what you feel. So instead of repeating the words, tune into the feeling state. Ask yourself, what would it feel like to be abundant right now? Not someday, but now. Can you breathe into that? Can you let that feeling expand in your body, even if just for a few moments? Can you allow your nervous system to experience it not as fantasy, but as frequency? Because the moment you feel it fully, your vibration changes. And when your vibration changes, see everything changes, you start to receive intuitive nudges. You start to notice opportunities you were once blind to. You start to become the kind of person who naturally receives what they desire. Because here's the truth, you were never told you don't attract your dreams through effort, you attract them through identity. The question is not, how do I get it? The question is, who would I be if I already had it? Your answer to that question is your compass, your shortcut, your recalibration. Begin to ask it daily. Begin to feel into it regularly. Let it guide your choices, your posture, your thoughts, your speech. You don't need to pretend, you simply need to align. This is not about perfection, it's about consistency. Start with small shifts. When doubt arises, pause. Ask, what would the aligned version of me do right now? When scarcity whispers, there's not enough, respond with the calm of someone who knows their good is inevitable. Not because you're tricking the universe, but because you're remembering the truth. The truth is, you are already the thing you're trying to become. The only thing in the way is the version of you who thinks they're not. This chapter is your permission to let go of that version. Let go of the self who doubts, who hesitates, who performs to be seen, who waits for evidence before they believe, and instead, step into the self who knows they are the frequency. Because once you do, reality no longer resists you. It reorganizes itself around you, not from force, but from frequency. There is a quiet revolution waiting inside you, one that doesn't come from learning something new, but from remembering something ancient. You were born as a transmitter of frequency. Before you had language, you had energy. Before you could explain what you wanted, you emanated what you were, and the universe responded. But somewhere along the way, you were taught to doubt that signal. You were taught to replace your inner knowing with rules, logic, expectations. You were taught that success comes from hustle, that love must be earned, that worth is a measurement. And so, little by little, you stopped tuning into your frequency. You stopped trusting what you felt. You started chasing formulas instead of following resonance. But here's the sacred truth. Your energy is your command. Not in a metaphorical way, but in a literal, universal law kind of way. Every desire you have exists on a frequency. And the only reason you haven't experienced it yet is not because it's far away, but because you're not yet tuned to its signal. It's not about pulling it toward you. It's about moving yourself into alignment with where it already exists. This is the essence of quantum creation, not linear movement, but vibrational alignment. Let's break this down in a practical way. Imagine you desire more money. You might visualize wealth. You might set goals. You might even repeat, I am rich every morning. But if, beneath the surface, you feel guilty about wanting more, if you associate money with stress or selfishness, if you subconsciously believe you're not worthy of overflow, your dominant frequency will remain in lack. And lack cannot tune into wealth. No matter how loud the affirmation, no matter how many hours you meditate, this is why the work is not external, it's internal. You don't earn abundance, you align with it. You don't chase love, you become it. You don't force healing, you allow it. And that shift happens not when you perfect your mindset, but when you refine your emotional signature. So how do you do that? You begin with presence. You start to feel, not analyze, not control, not escape, but truly feel what's happening in your body. You become the gentle observer of your internal state. And in that space, you get to ask the most important question of all. What am I broadcasting right now? Not what am I hoping for, not what am I pretending, but what am I truly emitting into the field? Because life responds to that. This is the radical honesty that shifts everything. The willingness to admit that sometimes you're holding on to fear, that sometimes the dominant signal is doubt or unworthiness. And instead of trying to hide it with positive thinking, you transmute it with conscious feeling. This is emotional alchemy. You allow what's there to surface, and instead of suppressing it, you breathe through it. You give it space, and then you choose again. You shift not through shame, but through sovereignty. You say, I see you, fear, but I no longer let you dictate my frequency. You say, I feel scarcity, but I'm not anchoring in it. You move your body, you shake it off. You speak a new truth aloud, not to convince, but to embody. And as you do, your entire vibration changes. The field responds immediately. It doesn't wait for a perfect mood. It doesn't judge your past. It tunes to your present frequency now. That's how fast the shift can happen. That's how quickly the mirror begins to change. But here's the paradox. The more you chase the outcome, the more you stay anchored in misalignment. Because chasing is an energy of not having. And the universe, ever faithful, will reflect that back. So instead, drop the chase. Drop the timeline. Drop the desperate energy of when will it happen? And shift to the sovereign energy of it's already unfolding. You don't need to convince the universe. You only need to become undeniable. Undeniable in your energy, in your certainty, in your inner agreement with the reality you're calling forth. Because the truth is, the universe doesn't need time. It needs coherence. And when your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs align into a unified signal, the quantum field responds in kind. This is why some people manifest rapidly. It's not because they're lucky. It's because they're clear. Clarity is power. Ambivalence is static. You can't say yes to abundance while emotionally vibrating maybe. You can't desire intimacy while fearing vulnerability. You can't call in overflow while secretly preparing for collapse. And this isn't to shame you, it's to wake you up. Because when you finally become aware of the energy behind your life, you step into a level of power that no external condition can touch. You stop being a victim of circumstances. You become the signal that changes them. And the best part, this shift does not require years of work. It requires a moment of remembrance. One moment where you pause and choose to stop operating from the wound and begin embodying the healed version of you. One moment where you stop asking, what can I do to make it happen? And start asking, who am I being that this reality keeps repeating? One moment where you declare not with words, but with energy, I am the frequency, and I now align with my highest timeline. You breathe that in. You let it recalibrate your body. And from that place, you act not from fear, but from knowing. You walk not in panic, but in presence. You speak not to be heard, but as one who already commands reality from within. This is the frequency of creators, not dreamers, not seekers, creators. And you, now, are one of them. The moment you choose to be, so choose it now, not later, not when it feels safer, not when you have more evidence. Now, because this moment is the only one that holds the power, and the universe is already listening. Chapter 3. The Illusion of Control. Control is seductive. It disguises itself as safety, logic, responsibility. It whispers to us that if we just plan well enough, try hard enough, or think far enough ahead, we'll be protected, we'll be prepared, we'll stay ahead of the fall. And so we tighten our grip. We tighten it around timelines, around people, around outcomes. We make vision boards, set deadlines, map out strategies, micromanage every detail of the manifestation process, believing that our grip is what holds the world together. But here is the universal paradox. The tighter you hold, the more things slip through your fingers. It is not your control that brings life to you. It is your surrender. And yet surrender is the one thing most people resist. Why? Because surrender feels like vulnerability, like weakness, like letting go of the steering wheel in the middle of a storm. Because most of us were taught that control is strength, that planning equals preparedness, that releasing outcomes means losing power. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Because real power, the kind that bends reality around your being, comes not from control but from resonance. And resonance requires space. Control is tension. Control is constriction. It's born from fear, from uncertainty, from the belief that if we don't interfere, everything will fall apart. But that belief is rooted in an old identity, the identity of the struggler, the one who believes they must hustle for every drop of peace, the one who's been burned by life enough times to start building walls instead of openings. So let's pause here, not to judge yourself, but to witness. Ask yourself, what am I still trying to control? Is it how fast my manifestation comes? Is it how others respond to me? Is it the exact shape and timing of my dreams? And what emotion is behind that control? Is it fear that if you loosen your grip, everything will vanish? Is it the pain of disappointment echoing from the past? Is it the belief that your worth is measured by what you can manage? If so, breathe. You're not alone. You're human. But now you're also awakening. Awakening to the truth that the universe does not require your micromanagement. It requires your trust. There's a reason the most powerful manifestations arrive when people stop obsessing, when they stop checking the clock, when they finally say, I don't care how it comes anymore, I just know it's mine. That moment of release, that's where the field responds. Because in that moment, your vibration shifts from desperation to certainty. And certainty is the most magnetic force in creation. But let's go deeper. Why do we really cling to control? Because control gives the illusion of stability. It gives our anxious minds something to do, something to calculate, manage, or rearrange. And as long as we're busy controlling, we don't have to sit with the discomfort of not knowing. But the unknown is not your enemy. The unknown is the source of miracles. Nothing magical is born from the known. The known is the past, the loop, the repetition, the new, the fresh, the miraculous that only lives in the mystery. And if you're always trying to force outcomes, you close yourself off from the infinite paths the universe is trying to send you. Control keeps you on one single, narrow road. Surrender opens 1,000 invisible doors. When you try to control reality, you are essentially telling the universe, I don't trust you. I'll take it from here. And the universe, in its infinite respect for free will, steps back. Not in punishment, but in permission. You want to do it all yourself? Okay. But life was never meant to be done alone. Manifestation was never meant to be effortful. It was meant to be a dance, a co-creation, a listening, a leading, a following a rhythm of becoming. And to dance, you must let go of rigidity. You must feel the music, not plan every step. You must let the mystery lead sometimes. So here's a radical shift in thinking. What if surrender is not giving up, but giving in? Giving in to alignment, to guidance, to something higher and more intelligent than your current perspective. Something that sees around corners and weaves timelines with a precision your human mind cannot comprehend. That's what you're aligning with when you release control, not chaos, but cosmic intelligence. And this doesn't mean you become passive. Surrender is not inaction. It's inspired action. It's moving when you're called, not when you're panicking. It's acting from knowing, not from fear. It's letting the current carry you rather than fighting upstream. Control comes from the head. Surrender comes from the heart. And the heart is where the quantum responds most quickly. Because the heart doesn't need to know how, it simply knows what. It knows desire, clarity, resonance, and when you live from the heart, you stop needing guarantees. You start needing truth. You stop needing to be right, you start needing to be real. And reality, true reality, bends for those who are real. So now, take a breath and ask yourself again, where am I gripping too tightly? Where am I afraid to let go? And what if, just what if, letting go is the very thing that finally lets it in? Let this be the beginning of that release. Let this be the start of your surrender. Not because you're giving up, but because you're giving way to something greater, something smarter than your mind, something softer than your resistance, something stronger than your fear. The universe is not resisting you. It's waiting for you to loosen your grip so it can place the miracle in your open hands. Let's take this deeper. Let's move past the surface level desire to let go and look at what's really happening beneath control. Because for most, control isn't just about managing life, it's about managing fear. It's about creating a buffer between you and the unknown. Control gives the illusion of safety because uncertainty has become synonymous with danger. And that's not just mental conditioning, it's cellular memory. It's the body's learned response after years of pain, disappointment, abandonment, rejection. At some point, control became your armor. You learned that if you planned enough, people couldn't surprise you. If you anticipated every outcome, life couldn't hurt you. If you stayed 3 steps ahead, maybe you'd finally stay safe. But control is a trauma response dressed as a strategy. It doesn't make life safer. It makes life smaller. It reduces infinite possibilities down to only what your nervous system believes it can handle. And often, what it believes it can handle is very little because the body remembers what the mind has long since forgotten. So you try to control your reality, not because you're controlling by nature, but because at some point you stop trusting that the universe would hold you. And in the absence of that trust, you stepped in. You tried to become your own savior. But you weren't built to carry the weight of the entire unfolding. You weren't designed to manipulate the timing of every dream, or the behavior of every person, or the outcome of every detail. Your job is not to build the bridge. Your job is to walk across it. Control keeps you in the role of the builder, always anxious, always checking, always adjusting the design. But surrender lets you walk. It lets you move forward even when the next step hasn't appeared. It says, I don't need to know where this is going. I only need to know I am held. And when that becomes your energy, life opens. This is why manifestations often arrive after you've let go. Because letting go isn't giving up on the desire, it's releasing the need to force its arrival. And when you release the need to force it, your frequency softens. And when your frequency softens, it harmonizes. And when it harmonizes, the field responds. You don't need to scream at the universe. You only need to signal your alignment. That signal is clearest when you trust. But what if you don't trust yet? What if your nervous system is still on edge, still bracing for something to go wrong? Then that is your work not to fix your life, but to heal the part of you that believes it needs to be fixed in the first place. Because here's the truth. When you fully trust yourself, you don't need to control life. You can handle what arrives. You can navigate what unfolds. You trust your own alignment so deeply that you stop panicking about results and start living from a place of openness and peace. And when peace becomes your baseline, miracles become your normal. Control keeps miracles out. Because miracles don't enter clenched hands. They arrive in stillness, in breath, in surrender. So if you've been clinging tightly, take this moment now. Just you and this breath though soften. Let your shoulders drop. Let your belly relax. Let your mind ease just enough to ask, what would it feel like to be fully supported? Not just intellectually, but viscerally, energetically. Let that question echo in your body. And now, answer it not with words, but with posture, with breath, with energy. Feel what it's like to stop gripping, to stop calculating, to stop being the keeper of every outcome. Feel what it's like to be the one who knows. I am supported. I am safe. I don't need to control life to be protected by it. Because the truth is, the universe is not your opponent. It's not testing you. It's not trying to trick you. It is your echo, your amplifier, your dance partner. And like any good partner, it cannot lead while you are trying to lead at the same time. The moment you let it guide you, the moment you lean back into its rhythm, the dance becomes effortless again. You don't need to know the next move. You only need to feel the music. This is the frequency of surrender, and it is not passive. It is the most empowered state a human can live in, because it means you've transcended the mind's addiction to control and returned to the soul's native state of trust. And from that place, every desire that's meant for you finds you. Not because you went out and caught it, but because you became the version of you who was open enough to receive. So as we close this chapter, I want you to remember this. You are allowed to release control. You are allowed to trust the flow. You are allowed to walk forward without knowing every step. You are allowed to rest your mind and still receive miracles. And the moment you choose to release, the current begins to carry you. Chapter 4. The subconscious script. Beneath every conscious desire, beneath every vision board and affirmation, beneath every carefully spoken intention, there is a script. Unseen, unspoken, powerful. This script doesn't live in your words. It lives in your energy. It lives in the stories you inherited, the memories you never questioned, the beliefs passed down through generations and buried deep within your subconscious mind. And though you may not remember writing it, this script has been running the show all along. This is the paradox of manifestation. You consciously ask for one thing while subconsciously expecting something else, and the subconscious always wins. Why? Because the subconscious mind is the projector of your reality. It is the lens through which all energy is filtered. You may be saying, I want abundance, but if your subconscious is still holding on to memories of scarcity, self-doubt, or shame, then what you truly expect deep down is a continuation of lack. And so that's what manifests, not because you're broken, not because you're doing it wrong, but because you're manifesting from a fragmented frequency. Let's make this clear. The universe does not judge. It simply reflects. It doesn't ask what you meant, it returns what you're tuned to. And most of what you're tuned to, it isn't chosen consciously. It's programmed. From the moment you were born, your subconscious was absorbing everything: your parents' money beliefs, your culture's limitations, your early emotional experiences, the tone of a caregiver's voice, the way success was celebrated or feared, the way you were soothed or ignored, every moment recorded, every repetition etched into the code of your being. By the time you reached adulthood, you were already walking around with a fully formed script about what life is, what love feels like, what money means, and what you're allowed to receive. And most people spend their lives trying to manifest new results without ever rewriting that script. But you're not most people. You are awakening now, not just to the idea of the subconscious, but to its power, to the realization that the results you've been calling blocks or bad luck are not punishments. They're printouts. They are the perfect, precise output of the beliefs you're carrying beneath the surface. And the good news? What was written can be rewritten, but not with force, not with judgment, with awareness. Because when you bring something from the dark into the light, it begins to lose its power. Not because you destroy it, but because you integrate it. You bring it home. Let's pause and go inward for a moment. Take a breath. Feel your body. Now ask yourself gently, what do I truly believe I'm allowed to have? Say it out loud if you can. Don't filter it. Don't fix it. Just notice. Then ask, what do I believe I always struggle with? Again, answer without judgment. Let the truth rise from the well of your being. These answers, they're not just beliefs. They are energetic blueprints. And unless updated, they'll keep looping. Because the subconscious does not change through logic. It changes through repetition and emotion. That means no matter how much your conscious mind wants success, if the script underneath associates success with pain, betrayal, rejection, or overwork, it will continue to repel it to keep you safe. That's the thing. Your subconscious is not sabotaging you. It's protecting you based on outdated instructions. It's running a program that was written in moments of trauma, confusion, or misunderstanding. It doesn't know you've grown. It doesn't know you're ready now. It doesn't know the danger has passed. Your job is to reintroduce yourself, to say, I am not that scared child anymore. I am not that wounded version. I am safe now. I am ready. And then to speak a new truth. Because the subconscious is not some mysterious force locked in the shadows. It is listening. It is responding. And it is reprogrammable. But first, you must see it. You must see the script for what it is, a collection of old data knot destiny. If your story says love is painful, ask, whose story was that first, and is it still true for me? If your story says money is hard, ask, when did I first feel that, and am I ready to feel something else? If your story says life never works out for me, ask, am I willing to become the version of me for whom it does? Because that version, they exist. They are not imaginary. They are a living potential. And they are waiting just beneath the old program to take the wheel. But they cannot emerge while you're still clinging to the comfort of familiar, even if that familiarity is pain. Yes, even pain can be familiar. Even struggle can feel safe because at least it's predictable, at least it's known. But you didn't come here to repeat the known. You came to remember your power. You came to reclaim the pen and rewrite the script. And that begins now. Not by fixing everything overnight, but by witnessing what's already running and choosing to respond differently. No shame, no blame. Just a conscious decision to say, this story is no longer mine. And from that moment, the rewrite begins. So much of what you experience isn't rooted in your present awareness, it's anchored in your past programming. The thoughts you think on repeat, they're echoes. The emotions that surge seemingly without reason, they're cues from scenes you've already lived. And the patterns you keep reliving over and over again are just memories in disguise. We call them circumstances. We call them coincidences. But at their core, they are reflections of the subconscious script still running in the background. And here's what you need to know now, in this moment, if you are to ever move beyond the loop. Your subconscious doesn't manifest what you desire, it manifests what you expect. Let that sink in. Desire is conscious. Expectation is subconscious. Desire says, I want love. But expectation whispers, love leaves. Desire says, I want wealth. Expectation mutters, I always struggle. And the universe, impartial and precise, doesn't respond to the loudest voice. It responds to the most consistent signal. That signal is your dominant emotional baseline. So if you find yourself constantly manifesting struggle, chaos, rejection pause, don't ask what you're doing wrong. Ask what you've come to expect. Because the moment you shine a light on your unconscious expectations is the moment you begin to free yourself from them. This is why awareness is power. When you become the observer of your programming, you step outside of it. You stop being the actor and become the author. You stop living in the loop and start rewriting the narrative. So let's go there. Let's talk about how to actually reprogram the subconscious, not just in theory, but in practice. First, understand the subconscious doesn't speak in logic or language. It speaks in feeling and repetition. So to change the script, you don't convince it. You show eat over and over what you now choose to feel and believe. That means creating new emotional experiences that contradict the old ones. That means practicing new thoughts until they feel like truth. That means choosing a new identity and stepping into it before it makes sense. You don't wait for the outer world to reflect the shift. You become the shift. Imagine this. You've carried the belief your whole life that people can't be trusted. You're not even sure where it came from. Maybe a parent betrayed you, or a friend turned on you, or a lover broke your heart. That belief settled deep in your subconscious. And now, every time someone gets close, your nervous system anticipates betrayal. You put up walls, you sabotage, and you confirm the very pattern you're trying to escape. But now you're aware. You see the script. So what do? You don't force yourself to trust blindly. You don't gaslight yourself into pretending the pain wasn't real. You begin gently. You begin by noticing the walls when they rise. You begin by choosing presence instead of panic. You begin by telling yourself, it's safe now. I am not who I was. They are not who they were. And you do this again and again and again until the body stops bracing, until the mind stops assuming, until the script rewrites itself into something softer, safer, truer. This is emotional reprogramming. It's not instant, but it is powerful. Because every time you choose a new response, you create a new pathway in the brain and a new frequency in the field. Your identity shifts. And with it, your reality must follow. This is how transformation works, not through sudden epiphanies, but through steady reconditioning. The subconscious learns the same way it was formed, through consistency and emotion. So if you want to install a new story one where you are supported, loved, wealthy, free, you must feel that story into your cells. Not once, every day, even before it seems real. Especially before it seems real. Because that's what frequency work is. The brave decision to become before you are validated. And it works. Not because you're pretending, but because you're replacing. You're creating an internal resonance so strong that the old script cannot survive. This is the essence of embodiment. You don't wait for the world to show you who you are. You decide who you are and let the world catch up. So begin here. Write a new script, literally. Take a journal and write a new narrative for your life, not what has happened, but what you now choose. Not what others have told you, but what your soul knows is true. Write the story of the version of you who no longer doubts, who no longer clings to wounds like their proof, who walks in certainty, not because everything is guaranteed, but because they've remembered the truth. You are not your past. You are not your parents. You are not your pain. You are the author now. And this life is your manuscript. You don't have to erase what came before, but you do get to write what comes next. So ask yourself, what do I choose to believe from this moment on? What is my new baseline? What is my new expectation? Hold that, feel it, speak it, breathe it. And when doubt arises, it will do not fight it. Just return to the page. Return to the truth you are choosing now, again and again and again, until it becomes your new subconscious script. Until it becomes the code your energy broadcasts. Until it becomes your life. Chapter 5. Embodying the end result. Most people live as though their dreams are distant, just out of reach, hiding behind some future event, waiting for the right moment to arrive. They speak of the life they want in future tense. When I have money, when I find love, when I feel healed, then I'll be happy, confident, free. But this mindset, innocent as it may seem, is the very energy that keeps those dreams forever suspended in time. Because as long as you are waiting, you are affirming that the result is separate from you. And the universe, it agrees. It always agrees. Not because it is cruel, but because it mirrors your vibration with exacting precision. If your frequency says someday, the field responds with delay. If your frequency says almost, life reflects back the endless almost. But the moment your energy says now and truly means it, the entire field shifts. Because here's the unspoken truth about manifestation, the key that most people overlook. You don't create the result by chasing it. You create it by becoming it. That is the law. You must embody the end result, not just wish for it, or visualize it, or affirm it, but live it from the inside out, long before it appears in physical form. You must walk as if, speak as if, move as if, not in pretense, not to manipulate the universe, but because you understand this, energy leads and form follows. Let me say that again. Energy leads, form follows. And if you are constantly waiting for your life to give you permission to be the person you long to be, you will wait forever. The real secret? You go first. You go first in energy. You go first in embodiment. You go first in becoming, and life follows. Let's make this real. Say you want to manifest a relationship, the kind of love that is sacred, expansive, nourishing. You could write a list of traits. You could visualize the person. You could script every conversation in your journal. But if you are still waking up every day and feeling unworthy, if your body is still bracing for rejection, if your frequency is still echoing loneliness, then you are not in the end result. You are in the longing. And longing cannot magnetize fulfillment. It magnetizes more longing. So how do you shift? You ask, what would I feel if I already had it? Not in some future someday, but now. Would you feel secure, radiant, whole? Then your job is to cultivate that frequency now. You don't wait to be loved before you feel loved. You become the vibration of love. You don't wait for the bank account to rise before you feel wealthy. You become the vibration of wealth. You don't wait to be chosen before you stand tall. You become the one who chooses herself. This is embodiment. It's the difference between hoping and being. And this shift changes everything. When you step into the energy of the fulfilled version of yourself, you collapse timelines. You move from linear effort to quantum alignment. Because the field responds not to your desires but to your current state of being. That's why it doesn't matter how hard you want something. What matters is what you are being right now. And embodiment is not a trick or a performance. You can't fake frequency. You can't outsmart the quantum field. This isn't about pretending you're rich while panicking over bills. This is about tuning your energy to the feeling of abundance, even if your circumstances haven't caught up yet. This is about walking in faith so fully that the world has no choice but to meet you at your level. So how do you embody the end result when the outer world is still catching up? Start by remembering that the outer world is always lagging behind your inner state. Reality is not instantaneous. It is responsive, like an echo that takes a moment to bounce back. You send the signal now, and the world replies in due time. But if you keep changing the signal, if you emit joy in the morning and despair by night, confidence one day and desperation the next, the field gets scrambled. It doesn't know what to reflect. But when you hold the signal, when you live in the end, consistently, reality stabilizes. It reorganizes. It bends around your energy. Because embodiment is certainty made visible. It says, I already know who I am. I already know what's mine. I already know it is done. And when you live from that place, you stop chasing. You stop doubting. You stop clinging to signs and timelines and outcomes. You just live. You embody. And in doing so, you become the gravitational center of your desires. They orbit around you not because you demanded them, but because your frequency became the sun they couldn't resist. Now, let's go even deeper. Because embodying the end result isn't just about feeling good. It's not about putting on a mask of positivity or temporarily convincing yourself that everything is working out. It's a rewiring, a complete shift in identity. To embody means to become, and that becoming is the most powerful act of creation you will ever engage in. So ask yourself now, who is the version of me that already has what I want? Who is the version of me that doesn't worry about money anymore? That wakes up next to a partner who deeply loves them? That walks into rooms already knowing they belong? That version is not fantasy. It is a frequency, a state of being that already exists in the quantum field, waiting for you to merge with it. And every time you tune into that version, every time you act, think, feel, move, breathe like them, you draw that timeline closer until it becomes you. Not someday, but now. Because the end result is not an event, it's a frequency. And you don't wait to reach it, you step into it. So how do we do that? Let's go step by step, not as a formula, but as an awakening. Step 1. Emotional alignment. You begin by feeling now what you thought you'd feel when it arrives. If you think the success will bring you freedom, create that sense of freedom now. If you think the love will bring you safety, anchor into safety now. If you think the money will bring you power, walk in that power now. Let your nervous system taste the future now. Because the subconscious doesn't know the difference between memory, imagination, or reality. It responds only to feeling. And once it feels something often enough, it begins to accept it as fact. This is why imagining your future self-vividly, emotionally, consistently is not fantasy. It's training. It's energetic rehearsal. And repetition is how the mind rewrites its identity. Step 2, behavioral resonance. Once you're emotionally aligned, it's time to act from that place. Not forced action, inspired alignment. Ask yourself, what would my future self do today? Would they procrastinate or prioritize? Would they shrink or show up? Would they doubt or decide? Begin to move like them, speak like them, structure your day like them, dress like them if it helps, eat, walk, breathe like them, not to pretend, but to practice resonance. You are becoming familiar with a frequency that your body forgot it had access to. And the more you embody it, the more familiar it becomes. Until one day, you don't have to try. It's just who you are. Step 3, energetic non-attachment. This may be the most important piece. You must be willing to live in the energy of your desired result without needing it to happen. Because the moment you need it, you imply it isn't here. Need is lack, and lack cannot receive. But when you live in the energy as if it's already done, and you do it for the joy of it, not the outcome, you become magnetic. You no longer look around asking, where is it? Because you already are it. This is the paradox. You must want it deeply, but not need it at all. You must move toward it, but live as if it's already yours. You must take inspired steps, but hold no desperation. That is embodiment. It's not about waiting. It's about collapsing the space between you and the dream by removing the illusion of separation. Because you are never actually waiting for a thing. You are only waiting to become the version of yourself who can hold it. And that version is always one identity shift away. Not a better version. Not a more healed or more deserving version. Just a more aligned one. The one who already knows. I no longer chase what I want. I become who already has it. And from that place, it flows. Let this be your new mantra. Let this be the end of striving. The end of wondering. The end of reaching for your life like it's on a distant mountaintop. It is not. It is here. Now, in this breath, in this body, in this version of you, the one who chooses today to step fully, unapologetically, powerfully into the frequency of fulfillment. So take a moment, close your eyes, feel it. What does the end result feel like? In your spine, in your chest, in your belly. How do you breathe? How do you walk? What do you know for certain? Let it anchor into you. Let it become your new default. And when you open your eyes, let that version of you lead. From now on, this is embodiment. And this is where reality finally bends to meet you. Chapter 6, the magnetic power of stillness. There is a place inside you that knows exactly what to do. It doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It doesn't spiral into what ifs or spin stories about time running out. It simply waits like deep waters, calm, clear, and powerful. That place is called stillness. And stillness is not silence. It's not laziness. It's not retreat. Stillness is a force. In a world addicted to movement, Stillness is rebellion. In a world that praises busy, it is holy. It is not the absence of power, it is the source of it. And yet, most never touch it because most are too afraid to stop. Why? Because we have been conditioned to believe that only movement creates progress, that only hustle produces results, that only doing, chasing, grinding, and earning will bring us what we want. And so we live in constant motion, checking, refreshing, asking, trying, grasping. But here's the cosmic truth. Energy doesn't respond to effort, it responds to alignment. And alignment is born in stillness. You can't force alignment. You can't fight your way into clarity. You can't outrun doubt and crash into abundance. You have to pause. You have to tune in. You have to feel the space beneath the noise. Because that space, that's where your true signal lives. Not the frantic thoughts, not the carefully crafted affirmations, not the list of steps your mind thinks will finally unlock the dream. The real key is in the pause. The moment you stop trying to figure it all out and instead allow truth to rise up from within. Stillness is the soil where certainty grows. And certainty is the signal the universe listens to. Most people fill their days with action not because they're inspired, but because they're afraid of what they'll hear in the quiet. They confuse busyness with alignment. They confuse noise with purpose. They confuse external motion with internal magnetism. But your greatest manifestations are not built in movement. They are received in stillness. This is the paradox. When you finally get quiet enough to hear your own signal, everything begins to move around you. Reality shifts, synchronicities appear, doors open. Not because you forced them, but because you stop creating interference. Stillness clears the channel. And once the channel is clear, energy flows. Ideas come. The next step reveals itself. The path unfolds not from your mind, but from the field, from the higher intelligence that guides everything effortlessly. Think of the great minds of history, the inventions, the insights, the works of genius. They didn't arrive in chaos, they didn't arrive in noise. They arrived in quiet, in nature, in solitude, in the breath between thoughts. You are no different. You are not here to chase your purpose, you are here to remember it. And memory lives in stillness. The version of you who already knows what to do, the version of you who already lives in alignment is not somewhere far off in the future. It's here, just beneath the static, waiting for you to listen, but listening takes courage. Because stillness will show you everything, your truth, your fears, your power. It will strip away the noise and leave you with what's real. And what's real might not match the life you've built. That's why so many avoid it. But you're ready. You're ready to stop living in reaction. You're ready to stop broadcasting confusion and wondering why clarity never arrives. You're ready to stop sending mixed signals to the universe. I want this, but I'm terrified of it. I deserve this, but I don't believe it. I'm ready, but please not yet. Stillness ends the static. Stillness makes your signal pure. And the universe responds instantly to a pure signal. So take this moment now, wherever you are, and breathe. Slow down. Let your thoughts swirl and settle like snowflakes in a shaking globe. Let the quiet rise. And notice, beneath the noise, you are still here. Beneath the chaos, you still exist. And that existence, that grounded, unwavering, rooted presence is your power. This is the energy that makes you magnetic. This is the frequency that pulls your future to you not through effort, but through certainty. Because nothing is more attractive than a being who does not rush. A being who knows that what is theirs is already on the way. A being who walks not faster, but deeper. Stillness is not inaction. It is conscious non-resistance. It is the decision to stop controlling and start allowing. And in that allowing, miracles begin. Stillness is not a void. It is a portal. It's not the absence of movement. It's the presence of pure potential, unshaped, undirected, infinite. And when you learn how to enter that stillness deliberately, consciously, as a sovereign being, you tap into the source of creation itself. Because creation doesn't begin with doing, creation begins with being, with intention, with vibration. And nothing calibrates your vibration faster than presence. But here's the deeper truth. Stillness isn't just where you receive. It's where you begin to speak from the center of your being, where you command, not as someone asking for permission, but as someone aligned with universal power. Your voice, your true, aligned, coherent voice, is one of the most potent tools of manifestation in existence. But most never use it fully. They whisper affirmations like wishes. They speak goals like hopes. They declare truths wrapped in uncertainty. And the universe, always listening, always reflecting, responds not to the words themselves, but to the frequency behind them. That frequency is born in stillness. It is refined in presence. It becomes powerful only when it arises from the version of you who knows that you are not separate from the universe you are speaking as it. You are not a beggar at the gates of abundance. You are the gate itself. So the question is not, how do I get what I want? The question is, what am I saying with my energy? What am I commanding with my being? And more deeply, am I speaking as someone who is aligned or someone who is still afraid? Because every time you speak, every time you think, every time you radiate a frequency, you are casting a vote for your reality. Your voice is your vibration made audible. And when your vibration is refined in stillness, it becomes unmistakable. It becomes magnetic. It becomes directive. This is not about shouting. This is about speaking from the still, unwavering center within you, the part of you that knows. That doesn't need evidence. That doesn't need agreement. That doesn't need validation. Stillness reconnects you with that voice. And once you are connected to it, your words begin to shape reality in real time. No more asking. No more hoping. Only speaking what already is, because your job as a creator is not to chase outcome as it is to become the resonance that makes those outcomes inevitable. So ask yourself now, what truths have I been whispering when I should be declaring? What desires have I treated as distant instead of expressing them as done? Where have I been speaking as someone separate from their creation instead of someone one with it? Because the moment you shift your inner posture from wishful to certain, from fragmented to integrated, the universe hears it, not in your words, but in your tone. And the tone of your life is what shapes its rhythm. This is how you begin to co-create deliberately, not by barking commands at the cosmos, not by begging for signs, but by embodying stillness, then letting your voice rise from that sacred center. Clear, calm, commanding. Because the universe does not respond to noise, it responds to knowing. Stillness is what gives your voice weight. It is what gives your words gravity. It is what makes your affirmations real. Not because you're saying them louder, but because they are now emerging from coherence. Stillness refines your intention. It strips away the scattered thoughts, the desperate requests. The borrowed dream sand reveals what's actually yours, what's real, what's aligned. And from that place, you don't ask for life to change, you speak it into form. This is what the ancients meant when they spoke of the word as power. This is why sacred texts, sacred rituals, sacred declarations all begin in silence. because they understood it's not the volume of your words that moves energy, it's the depth of your alignment when you speak them. And stillness is where that depth is born. So how do you live in this state not just occasionally, but as a way of being? You return to the inner temple, not through meditation alone, but through awareness. Every moment is an invitation to stillness. Every decision is a chance to pause and align. You don't have to leave your life to access this. You only have to stop leaving yourself. The version of you who speaks from stillness is always available. In the pause before a reaction, in the breath before you speak, in the awareness that asks, am I speaking from fear or from knowing? This is the new path. Not manifesting from lack, not forcing with effort, but speaking from stillness and letting the field obey not because you're in control, but because you're in harmony. You don't have to figure everything out. You don't have to make every outcome arrive. You only have to remember the one truth that will shift everything. Creation moves through you, and stillness is how you let it. And letting the field obey not because you're in control, but because you're in harmony. You don't have to figure everything out. You don't have to make every outcome arrive. You only have to remember the one truth that will shift everything. Creation moves through you, and stillness is how you let it. Chapter 7, The Voice That Shapes Reality. There is a power within you that no one taught you how to use. A power so vast it forms worlds. It reconfigures timelines. It calls forth futures and rewrites the laws of what is possible not with effort, but with vibration. And that vibration has a voice. Your voice. Not just the voice you use to speak to others, but the voice behind the words, the tone in which you speak to yourself, the energy with which you declare what is true, the quiet or thunderous resonance that flows through you every time you say, I am. That voice is sacred. It is your wand, your tuning fork, your signature in the quantum field. And yet, most people use their voice unconsciously. They speak without awareness of the power their words hold. They say things like, nothing ever works out for me. I always mess this up. It's so hard to find love. And then they wonder why their reality echoes back exactly what they declared. This is not punishment. It's physics. The universe doesn't filter your speech through a moral lens. It doesn't ask if what you're saying is fair or self-loving or empowering. It simply returns to you what you broadcast. And every word is a broadcast. Every sentence, a vibration. Every repeated statement, a blueprint. Your voice is not a commentary on reality. It is an instrument that shapes it. So ask yourself now, what have I been declaring as truth? Not just in my affirmations or spiritual practices, but in my everyday life. What do I say when I wake up and look in the mirror? What do I whisper under my breath when things don't go as planned? What stories do I keep alive by retelling them to others? Because every word you speak carries the frequency of either your past or your becoming, and your power lies in choosing which. To speak from your past is to relive it. To speak from your becoming is to call it forth. This is the art of conscious speech, and it begins not by saying positive things, but by becoming radically aware of what you say when no one is watching. Your casual self-talk is not casual at all. It's formative. It's instructive. It tells the field what you expect, and expectation is more powerful than desire. You might desire wealth, but if your language still carries the vibration of struggle, I can't afford that. I'm broke. It's too expensive. Then the field will return that frequency, not your wish. This is not superstition. This is sovereignty. You are not casting spells with every word. You are revealing your vibration with every word. And the vibration you reveal is what becomes flesh. So speak like you are shaping your world, because you are Let's go deeper. The voice you use with yourself is the foundation of your external power. Your inner voice trains the field how to respond to you. If you constantly diminish your value saying things like, I'm not good enough, or I never get it right, you train reality to reflect those words back. But when you begin to speak as the version of you who trusts their power, who honors their worth, who affirms what they know is already done, you become magnetic. Your voice becomes a resonance, not a request. It becomes a tone the universe harmonizes with. This is not about shouting louder. It's not about chanting affirmations with forced energy. It's about aligning your voice with your being. Because when your voice rises from inner truth, not fear, not programming, not pretense sake, carries a tone that reality cannot ignore. You felt this before. And others, people who speak few words, but when they do, everything shifts. There's a weight to their presence, a gravity, a coherence. That is what your voice becomes when you speak from alignment. So how do you find that voice? You stop speaking from reaction. You start speaking from intention. You stop using your voice to defend your limitations. You start using it to declare your vision. You stop repeating the old narrative. You begin telling the new one out loud, with full presence, not for others to hear, but for the field to receive. Speak into the space around you, not to fill it with noise, but to infuse it with direction. Speak as a creator. Speak as a being whose words are not hopes, but blueprints. Speak as someone who knows that the phrase I am is the beginning of every reality, and you are now choosing what follows it with purpose. This is your turning point. No more careless language. No more unconscious speech. From this moment forward, your voice becomes a conscious instrument of creation. There's a reason ancient traditions guarded the spoken word like sacred fire. They knew something we've forgotten in the age of idle chatter and background noise. Your voice is a spiritual technology. It is not just a sound, it is a signature, a signal, a frequency so uniquely yours that the entire universe rearranges itself when you use it with conviction. You don't speak to describe reality. You speak to command it. But to command doesn't mean to control. It means to declare with certainty from a place of inner coherence. And coherence is the secret. That's what gives your words weight. That's what gives your vibration depth. Most people are speaking from split energy, wanting one thing, but expecting another, declaring abundance while vibrating in fear, proclaiming love while fearing rejection, affirming their vision while doubting their worth. This creates noise, interference, static. And the universe is exquisitely sensitive. It responds to the clearest signal, not the loudest one. Your power is not in volume. Your power is in alignment. When your voice, your energy, your emotion, and your beliefs speak the same language, your words become reality. So let's talk about the anatomy of a conscious voice. A conscious voice is born in stillness. It rises through intention. It carries emotion. And it lands with precision. It begins when you pause before speaking and ask, what am I affirming right now? Because every sentence is an affirmation. Every casual phrase is a command. Even sarcasm is creation. Even jokes are spells. The universe doesn't differentiate between serious and just saying. It reads energy, and your energy doesn't lie. So if you constantly joke about being broke, if you casually complain about being single, if you often say, knowing my luck, it'll go wrong, you are not just speaking, you are writing code. And that code manifests. But here's the miracle. The moment you shift your voice from unconscious reaction to conscious creation, everything begins to respond. You start noticing opportunities that once passed you by. You start receiving compliments you used to deflect. You start attracting experiences that match your new declarations, not because you've earned them, but because you've aligned with them. This is the path of the vocal alchemist, the one who no longer speaks from wounds, but from wisdom, the one who understands that when they speak, they are not describing the world, they are designing it. You become that alchemist the moment you take back your voice. No more stories of always struggling. No more phrases like, I never catch a break. No more energetic agreements with powerlessness. You break those agreements by replacing them not just with words, but with resonance. Instead of saying, I'm always tired, you say, I am restoring energy. Instead of nothing ever works out, you declare, everything is aligning. Instead of I'm not ready yet, you affirm, I am exactly where I need to be. You speak as if the future has arrived because the moment you do, it starts to, and not because you've tricked the universe, but because you become the universe in expression. That's what your voice is. It is the universe as you shaping form with vibration. So now the question becomes, what reality do you want to speak into being? And deeper still, what version of you do you want to speak from? Because your voice will always align with one of two selves. Your past self, the one shaped by wounds, limits, conditioning, or your future self, the one shaped by power, clarity, and truth. Every sentence is a choice between those selves. Every I am is a doorway. Do you speak as the self who doubts or the self who knows? The self who survives or the self who creates? You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to say all the right things all the time, but you do need to become conscious, aware, sovereign, because awareness is the beginning of power. And the more aware you become of your words, their texture, their tone, their origin, the more potent they become. This is not about sounding spiritual. This is about speaking like someone who remembers that sound is creation, that your vocal cords were designed not just for communication, but for activation. You are not here to describe what you see. You are here to declare what you know, to declare it so clearly, so confidently, so consistently that life has no choice but to echo it back, because the echo is guaranteed. What you declare returns, and when your declaration comes from stillness, alignment, and inner knowing, it comes back fast. It ripples through time, it alters outcomes, it magnetizes futures. So let this be your initiation. From now on, speak only from the version of you who is whole. Speak from the version who doesn't need validation to declare truth. Speak from the place within you that has never doubted, never lacked, never broken, because that voice exists. That voice is the voice of God as you. That voice is the bridge between thought and form. And it's time you used it, not for performance, not for affirmation, but for creation. Speak as source all the time. But you do need to become conscious, aware, sovereign, because awareness is the beginning of power. And the more aware you become of your words, their texture, their tone, their origin, the more potent they become. This is not about sounding spiritual. This is about speaking like someone who remembers that sound is creation, that your vocal cords were designed not just for communication, but for activation. You are not here to describe what you see. You are here to declare what you know, to declare it so clearly, so confidently, so consistently that life has no choice but to echo it back, because the echo is guaranteed. What you declare returns, and when your declaration comes from stillness, alignment, and inner knowing, it comes back fast. It ripples through time, it alters outcomes, it magnetizes futures. So let this be your initiation. From now on, speak only from the version of you who is whole. Speak from the version who doesn't need validation to declare truth. Speak from the place within you that has never doubted, never lacked, never broken. Because that voice exists. That voice is the voice of God as you. That voice is the bridge between thought and form. And it's time you used it. Not for performance, not for affirmation, but for creation. Speak as source. Chapter 8. Beyond belief, living from unshakable knowing. There's a line you must cross on the path to mastery. A threshold between believing and knowing. And though it may appear subtle, it is everything. It is the difference between hoping reality will change and watching it obey your frequency without hesitation. Between chasing outcomes with rituals and visualizations and walking as the version of yourself, who knows, without a flicker of doubt, that reality must align. This is where the game of manifestation ends and the art of embodiment begins. This is where you move beyond belief into unshakable knowing. Belief is beautiful. It's the starting point. It's where the seed of possibility is first planted. But belief is also delicate. It requires reinforcement. It can be shaken. It can be disrupted by logic, doubted by others, weakened by lack of evidence. Belief is a bridge. It gets you moving. But you were never meant to live on the bridge. You were meant to cross it. And on the other side is knowing. Knowing is a state. It is not a thought. It is not an idea. It is not something you need to protect or prove. It just is. Knowing doesn't waver when results delay. Knowing doesn't shift with moods or opinions. Knowing doesn't ask, when will it happen? Knowing says, it's already done. Not with arrogance, not with force, but with the quiet, sovereign calm of someone who is aligned with a higher law, a deeper code, the truth that creation is internal and what you hold as real within you must eventually echo outside of you. This is the level of frequency where the quantum responds instantly. This is where synchronicities multiply, where timing bends, where what once took years to manifest begins showing up in days. Sometimes hours, not because you're lucky, but because you've stopped emitting confusion. You've stopped leaking energy into doubt. You've stopped seeking evidence. You've stopped chasing. You've started living as the cause, not the effect. But how do you get there? How do you go from belief, which feels fragile, to knowing, which feels eternal? You stop outsourcing your truth. You stop asking the world to reflect something it hasn't yet received from you. You stop needing signs before you settle into certainty. You stop checking the mirror to decide who you are. And instead, you anchor into the stillest, deepest part of yourself, the place where truth already lives. You see, knowing is not taught. It is remembered. It is reclaimed. It is the natural state of your soul, buried beneath layers of fear and conditioning and inherited smallness. You are not learning to believe in yourself. You are unlearning everything that convinced you not to. And unshakable knowing begins the moment you stop waiting for proof. Because when you need proof to feel certainty, you are still dancing in the energy of doubt. And doubt is not neutral. It is a signal. It says, I don't trust myself. It says, I still think I'm separate. It says, I still believe the outer world holds the power. But here's what the masters know. The outer world is delayed. It's a shadow, a reflection, a printout. And if you keep looking to the printout to decide how to feel, you remain trapped in reactivity. You remain at the mercy of old momentum. But when you flip the paradigm, when you begin to feel the inner truth so strongly that you don't need the outer to catch up, you become a force. You create from the inside out. and the universe has no choice but to rearrange itself to mirror the frequency of your being. That's not just philosophy, that's mechanics. So the real question is not how do I manifest faster? The real question is how can I anchor deeper into the version of me who already has it? Because that version isn't a fantasy. It is a real timeline, a living possibility. And your knowing is the key that opens the door. But knowing must be chosen, cultivated, protected not from the world, but from the small voice inside that still wants to default to logic, to delay, to dependency. The old voice will say, but what if it's not working? And the voice of knowing will say, it's already done. The old voice will say, but I can't see it yet. And knowing says, because you're here to lead, not follow. You go first. The old voice says, what if I'm wrong? Knowing says, I'd rather walk as truth and be wrong than wait as doubt and never see the miracle. Because when you live from knowing, you don't need the world to agree with you. You don't need others to validate your vision. You don't even need to feel confident all the time. You simply need to be consistent with your chosen frequency. You simply need to stop abandoning your inner truth every time the outer world lags behind. Because it will lag. That's not a problem. It's just a delay between signal and reflection. Knowing doesn't care about the delay. Knowing holds the signal. Knowing is the signal, and reality follows. Always. Let's now walk even further into the realm of knowing not as an idea, not as a concept to mentally grasp, but as a state of being to inhabit. Because when you fully claim the energy of knowing, you don't merely shift your mindset, you change your identity. You stop being the one who wants things to happen, and you become the one who knows they already are. That shift alone collapses time. It removes the static of waiting. It bypasses the need for external approval. It silences the old paradigm that says, when I see it, I'll believe it, and replaces it with a more powerful truth. Because I believe it, I will see it. But make no mistake, this isn't about blind faith. This is about cellular certainty. It's about locking into a timeline so completely, so unwaveringly, that the version of you who has what you desire becomes the only version you relate to. It's not pretending. It's not forcing. It's not a performance. It's a deep, internal alignment with what already exists in the quantum field. And from that alignment, your energy sends a clear, uninterrupted signal. And that signal is what draws form towards you. You are not waiting for something outside of you to change. You are calibrating your frequency so precisely that the outer world has no choice but to comply. You see, the universe isn't linear. It isn't moral. It doesn't favor hard workers or punish doubters. It doesn't respond to effort, it responds to coherence. And coherence is what knowing creates. When your thoughts, emotions, actions, and energy are in agreement, when your inner world is no longer at war with itself, you enter a level of resonance that reshapes the very fabric of your reality. Doors open, people show up, resources appear. Not because they were never there, but because your signal finally became clear enough to perceive them. This is why so many manifestations appear suddenly after years of trying. It's not because something finally clicked on the outside, it's because you finally dropped into knowing on the inside. You stopped hoping. You stopped doubting. You stopped asking. You became. So how do you live here in this frequency of knowing, not just for moments, but as a baseline? You cultivate presence. You observe the mind's tendencies to reach, to analyze, to grasp, and you anchor into the deeper part of you that simply is. Because the part of you that knows doesn't think in logic. It doesn't rush to conclusions. It doesn't argue or defend. It doesn't speak loudly. It just is. It's the same presence you feel in nature, in music, in moments of deep truth, where everything becomes still not because nothing is happening, but because what's happening is real. That's what knowing feels like. And the more you choose that stillness not as avoidance, but as power, the more your life begins to respond to the new frequency. You begin to move differently. You stop over-explaining. You stop over-planning. You stop checking your manifestation like tracking a package. You trust. You walk as if it's already yours, not because you're pretending, but because you understand that what you hold inside with full conviction must eventually materialize. This isn't magic. This is physics of the soul. But let's be honest, this is not always easy. You will be tested, not by the universe, but by your own habits, by the voice of the old self who will want to check the mirror, by the old patterns that will try to lure you back into reactivity, by people who don't yet live in knowing who will challenge your certainty because it confronts their doubt. And this is where most fall, not because their desire was too big, but because their commitment to knowing wasn't deep enough. So you must decide right here, right now, what you are available for. Are you available for a reality that wobbles every time your ego feels insecure? Or are you available only for the timeline that aligns with your soul's deepest knowing? Because your answer to that question is not intellectual. It is energetic. It's in how you wake up. It's in how you speak. It's in how you respond when things seem delayed. It's in how you hold the signal when the outer hasn't yet caught up. Because the test is not whether you can create. You've already created it. The test is whether you can hold the frequency long enough for it to arrive, and you do that by dropping beneath belief, into knowing, into identity, into becoming the version of you who no longer negotiates with doubt. Let that version speak. Let that version walk. Let that version breathe. And watch how reality bends not because you pushed it, but because you became the gravitational force around which everything else must now orbit. This is your evolution, from student to master, from seeker to source, from belief to embodiment. You are no longer rehearsing your power. You are expressing it. And your voice, clear, steady, unwavering now, carries the tone of truth. The field listens. Reality recalibrates. And what was once a desire becomes your natural state, not because you wished for it, but because you knew. Chapter 9. The Physics of Surrender. Surrender, a word so often misunderstood, often mistaken for weakness, misjudged as giving up. But in truth, surrender is not an escape from power, it is a return to it. It is the most profound act of alignment, the most exact calibration to the laws of the universe. When you truly understand surrender not as apathy, not as passivity, but as deliberate energetic release, you unlock a realm of effortless creation that force can never access. Surrender is not an emotion. It is not a mindset, it is a frequency. It is the moment you cease wrestling with reality and begin to dance with it. We live in a world addicted to control, obsessed with timelines, conditioned to believe that if we don't force it, we will fail, that if we stop pushing, everything will collapse. That surrender is what you do when nothing else works. But this belief that control equals safety is the great illusion. Because in the quantum field, control is friction. Control is resistance. Control is noise. And the more noise you emit, the less clearly your signal is received. The more you grasp, the more you push your desire away. Surrender is not the absence of will, it is the redirection of it. It is the choice to step out of the ego's limitations and into the soul's intelligence. It is the shift from micromanaging outcomes to magnetizing them, from obsessing over how and when to resting in the certainty of what. Because when you truly surrender, something extraordinary happens. You enter the flow state of reality. And in flow, you are no longer the one rowing the boat upstream. You become the current. You merge with the movement of creation. You speak, you act, you decided but not from desperation. You move with clarity, with ease, with the rhythm of a deeper force guiding your hand. This is the paradox of surrender. The less you force, the more you receive. The less you grasp, the faster things unfold. The less you try to control the outcome, the more aligned the outcome becomes. Why? Because your energy becomes clean. Your vibration becomes precise. You stop radiating doubt, need, and urgency and begin to broadcast trust, openness, and alignment. And trust is irresistible to the universe. Most people don't trust the process. They say they doba watch their energy, watch their thoughts, watch how they grip, watch how they check, refresh, question, and doubt. That is not surrender. That is anxiety wrapped in spiritual language. That is the mind trying to mimic faith. But real surrender, real trust, is quiet, grounded, unmoving. It says, I have spoken the word, I have cast the vibration, and now I let the field respond. You don't tug on seeds to make them grow faster. You don't rip open the cocoon to rush the butterfly. Why then do you try to rush your own evolution? This is the key shift. Surrender doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing from a different frequency. It means taking action from inspiration, not panic. It means trusting the impulse, following the nudge, allowing momentum to build not because you're afraid of standing still, but because you're aligned with what wants to move through you. Surrender is cooperation with divine intelligence. And divine intelligence is always organizing reality for your highest good even when you don't understand it in the moment, even when it looks like loss, or delay, or redirection. The mind says, why isn't it here yet? Surrender says, I trust the timing. The mind says, what if it doesn't happen? Surrender says, it's already done. The mind says, what should I do? Surrender says, let me listen. The next step will arrive. And it always does. In the stillness, in the subtle, in the space you never thought to look, you begin to live differently. You no longer exhaust yourself with strategies. You no longer fill every silence with noise. You no longer beg life to move faster. You become receptive. And in that receptivity, creation rushes in. Because the universe is like water. It flows where there is least resistance. It rushes into spaces that are open, not clenched. It fills containers that are ready to receive, not still trying to prove they're worthy. This is the physics of surrender. It's not spiritual poetry. It's energetic law. Let's get even more clear. You want something. You set an intention. You tune your vibration. You feel it in your body. You anchor it in certainty. Then what? You let go of needing it to arrive in a specific way. You release your timeline. You stop performing worthiness to the universe. You drop the question, is it working? Because in surrender, that question doesn't even make sense. You know it's working because the signal is clean, because you've aligned with it, because you're no longer interrupting the process with emotional interference. This is why so many people experience sudden breakthroughs after they give up. Not because they gave up, but because in the moment of letting go, they finally released the resistance. They surrendered, and the field responded. Not because they stopped wanting, but because they stopped grasping. Wanting isn't the problem. It's the neediness that creates distortion. Desire is divine. Longing is holy. The ache to experience more is the call of your expanded self, inviting you forward. But when that desire becomes drenched in fear, when it becomes an addiction to outcome, a constant negotiation with life, you block what you're calling in. Surrender purifies the desire. It strips away the fear. It leaves only the essence. And essence is magnetic. So the real mastery is this. Can you desire deeply and still surrender completely? Can you want with your whole heart, but let go with your whole being? Can you dream fully, act boldly, and then release the outcome into divine timing? That is the dance. That is the code. And once you embody it, you become untouchable. Not because you're in control, but because you no longer need to be. You're not fragile anymore. Your peace is not conditional. Your power is not performance. It is real. It is rooted. It is surrendered. And it is free. There is a point on your path where surrender becomes not just a practice, but your natural state. You no longer have to remember to surrender. You simply exist in trust. You no longer need to remind yourself to let go. You have become the kind of being for whom letting go is effortless. It's not because you've stopped desiring, but because your relationship to desire has evolved. You no longer chase it. You no longer beg for it. You partner with it. You recognize that what you desire is already on the way, not because of how perfectly you scripted it, but because you stopped blocking it with resistance. And this resistance, it wears many faces. It looks like overthinking, overmanaging, micromanaging every step of the process. It looks like obsession over timing, like gripping the wheels so tightly that the universe cannot drive. It looks like doubt disguised as planning, fear disguised as preparation, and the most subtle form of resistance, the one that hides in spiritual circumstances, the performance of surrender without the embodiment of it. You can light candles. You can say all the right affirmations. You can script your desires and burn your letters under the moon. But if your energy is still bracing, still waiting, still checking whether the universe has heard you, then the surrender hasn't truly landed. True surrender is wordless. It is not a plea. It is not a ceremony. It is a release so full that your entire body softens into trust. A surrender so real that you could walk away from your desire and still feel complete. Not because you don't care, but because you finally know it's yours, not maybe, not possibly, but inevitably. And this is the key to becoming magnetic. When your energy no longer carries the tension of wanting, life rushes to fill the space you've cleared. It senses that you're no longer waiting for something to complete you, that you're no longer addicted to outcomes to prove your worth, that you've stopped outsourcing your power to circumstances, and in that vacuum of resistance, manifestation becomes natural. The field bends not to force, but to surrender. But surrender doesn't mean you become passive. It doesn't mean you abandon your vision. It means you take action from flow, not fear. You make moves because you're inspired, not because you're afraid of what will happen if you don't. You say yes to aligned nudges not because you think this is your only chance, but because your inner compass is clear. You've surrendered the attachment to result, and now you can move freely. This is what so many misunderstand. Surrender is not stepping back. It's stepping differently, with less weight, with more clarity, with an open palm, not a clenched fist. And this energetic shift is what creates speed, precision, miracles. The ego clings, the soul allows. The ego pushes, the soul moves. The ego panics, the soul waits. The ego plots, the soul trusts. And every moment you feel yourself pulled back into control, you get to choose again. You get to pause, to breathe, to soften, to say, I've done my part, now I trust the unfolding. That's not laziness. That's co-creation. Because the truth is, you were never meant to do all the heavy lifting. That's why things feel heavy. That's why burnout happens. That's why so many people give up, not because their desires are wrong, but because their energy is misaligned. They're still carrying what the universe was meant to deliver. They're still trying to control the field instead of communicating with it. When you surrender, you open the channel for universal intelligence to take over. And it is always faster, always more precise, always more efficient than the human mind could ever conceive. But only if you let it. The physics of surrender is simple. Resistance creates drag. Surrender creates flow. Resistance emits mixed frequencies. Surrender refines the signal. Resistance says, I don't trust the process. Surrender says, I am the process. And when you live that way, when you really embody it, something incredible happens. Peace becomes your baseline. You're no longer living in reaction. You're no longer checking the mirror every 5 minutes to see if your affirmation is working. You know it's working. You're no longer using the results to measure your power. You're using your peace to measure your alignment. And that peace, that's the most magnetic frequency of all. Not because peace is the goal, but because peace is the proof. It's the evidence that you're living in the knowing. It's the sign that your signal is clean. So let's bring this into your body right now. Take a breath. Feel where you've been holding on to timelines, to outcomes, to needing it to happen now. Feel where you've been subtly performing surrender, but secretly still bracing. And now, soften. Drop the grip. Let go of needing to know exactly how it all plays out. And step into the version of you who no longer questions if the universe is working on your behalf. They know. They live from trust. They act from flow. They receive with grace. And when something doesn't happen the way they expected, they don't spiral. They don't panic. They smile because they've learned rejection is redirection. Delay is alignment. Change is intelligence. They no longer fear what's unknown because they know who they are in the unknown. They no longer shrink when things shift because they trust the deeper order guiding everything. This version of you is already here. And surrender is how you meet them. Not by becoming someone new, but by removing what no longer fits, letting go of what was never yours to control, returning again and again to the only place where power lives, not in the future, not in the plan, not in the grasp, but here, now, in this breath, in this choice, in this surrender. Chapter 10, Living as the Cause, Not the Effect. You were never meant to be a product of your environment. You were never designed to live at the mercy of circumstance, to adjust your energy based on what the world is showing you. You came here to be a creator, not a reactor, a transmitter, not an echo, a cause and not an effect. But most people are living backward. They look at their bank account, and that tells them how abundant they feel. They scan the room to see who's giving them attention before deciding if they feel worthy. They scroll social media, comparing timelines, judging their progress by what appears outside of them, and with each unconscious choice, they give away their power. They slip into the illusion that the world out there decides what happens in here. But the truth, Ison, has always been the world out there is responding to what happens in here. You are not an effect of life. Life is the effect of you. It reflects you. It mirrors your energy, your assumptions, your baseline frequency, not your conscious wishes, but your dominant state of being. This is not metaphor. It is law. The law of cause and effect is not poetic. It is precise. And when you live in alignment with it, everything changes. You stop chasing outcomes, you stop reacting to appearances, you stop waiting for proof before stepping into certainty. You become the generator of your life not because you are forcing it, but because you are finally living in harmony with how reality truly works. Think of it like this. Most people are standing in front of a mirror, frowning, waiting for the reflection to smile. They say, when life gives me what I want, then I'll feel better. Then I'll walk differently, speak differently, believe differently. But reality is not a source, it is a reflection. It doesn't initiate, it responds. You want the mirror to change? You have to change first. That is what it means to live as the cause. It means you stop negotiating with your current reality. You stop asking it for permission to feel powerful. You stop using it as the measuring stick of what's possible. You stop giving it your authority. You shift into the mindset of a sovereign creator own who understands that what is currently showing up is just the momentum of past vibration. Nothing more. Not a punishment. Not a prediction. Just a printout. And the new frequency you choose now will create the next moment. Most people collapse when they hear that. They think, but I've created this mess, this lack, this loneliness, this stagnation. I did this, but I want you to hear me clearly. This is not blame. This is power. Because if you created this, you can create something else. If this was shaped by your unconscious beliefs, your unspoken expectations, your unhealed stories, then with a new energy, a new focus, a new identity, a new vibration, you can create something entirely different. You can create on purpose. You can create deliberately. You can shift the script. You can become a new cause. But it requires you to stop living in emotional reaction to the old printout. It requires you to stop checking your progress every 5 minutes and start trusting your process. It requires you to live from the version of you that already has the result, not in pretense, but in frequency. Because here's the real magic. When you become the cause, you no longer need the effect. You don't require external proof to feel powerful. You know that power is what produces proof. You don't ask the world to make you feel abundant. You feel abundant, and the world reflects it. You don't chase love. You become love, and love finds you. And when you no longer need it, you no longer block it. The resistance disappears, the static dissolves, your signal becomes pure, and life has no choice but to rearrange itself to match it. This is what it means to be the cause. It is not arrogance. It is not control. It is the highest act of co-creation. It is the moment you stop begging life to change and begin directing it with your presence. Not by force, but by frequency. And frequency is born from focus. So here's the question. Where is your focus right now? Is it on what is missing, what's delayed, what hasn't happened yet? Or is it on the energy you are choosing to emit no matter what is showing up? Because the moment you reclaim your focus, you reclaim your power. You are not here to manage circumstances. You are here to master alignment. You are not here to constantly fix the mirror. You are here to remember that your inner world is the projector, and what you see out there is just the film running through your consciousness. This is not bypassing. This is not denial. This is sovereignty. And sovereignty means I choose what I emit. I choose what I align with. I choose what I create not once, not occasionally, but consistently. Especially when life offers me the temptation to go unconscious again. Especially when things look like they're not working. Because those are the moments that define creators. Those are the moments that reveal whether you are the cause or just another echo of old energy. So ask yourself now, am I choosing my vibration on purpose? Or am I letting my vibration be shaped by what I see? Am I living as the initiator of experience, or am I reacting to what others have created? Am I broadcasting a frequency of already having, or am I still waiting for permission? This is your opportunity to flip the script, to step out of emotional dependency, to stop asking life to go first, and to start living as a signal. Because when you Darwin, you start each day with the knowing that your energy is the cause, your voice is the command, your presence is the portal. Your life begins to move in ways that defy logic. You stop needing evidence because you become the evidence. To live as the cause is to wake up from the great illusion of powerlessness. It is to stop playing the waiting game, waiting for the right time, waiting for the right person, waiting for the breakthrough, the opportunity, the green light, waiting, always waiting for something out there to change so you can finally feel what you were born to feel: certain, worthy, abundant, loved. But here's the truth most never realize. The waiting is the block. The waiting is the delay, because what you are really waiting for is permission. And the universe cannot give you what you haven't first given to yourself. Living as the cause means your permission comes from within. Your timeline begins when you say so. Your shift happens not because the evidence appears, but because your identity expands. It means you decide how it is now, not later. You stop checking for signs and start becoming the sign. You stop wishing for momentum and start moving with intention. You stop asking the universe to show you, and you start showing the universe who you are. And this changes everything. Because the moment you become the source of your own inner state, you stop negotiating with external outcomes. You stop saying, if this happens, I'll feel good. And you start saying, I feel good, therefore this happens. That single reversal is the core of all conscious creation. It flips the axis of your reality from outside in to inside out. But here's the subtle trap. Your old programming will try to drag you back. It will whisper, be careful. What if it doesn't work this time? What if you're getting your hopes up? What if you're being unrealistic? It will offer you the comfort of doubt, the false safety of cynicism. It will ask you to shrink, to return to the familiar script of survival, of caution, of control. Don't listen, because that voice is not your truth. It is a shadow, a remnant of an outdated self, trying to preserve itself by feeding off your hesitation. But your future doesn't live in hesitation. Your next level doesn't arrive through fear. The timeline you want, the one where you are living fully, freely, powerfully, only opens when you step into the role of initiator. And yes, that means making bold moves without guarantees. It means becoming the version of you who acts from inner knowing, not outer validation. It means speaking as if you are already there, because in the field of infinite possibilities, you are. Remember, the quantum field does not respond to what you want. It responds to who you are being. You are the tuning fork. You are the radio tower. And every moment, your signal is either aligned with your vision or broadcasting your limitation. There is no neutral. There is only coherence or static. So the real work is not to fix what's broken. It's to remember who you are when you stop reacting to what's broken. You came here as a being of causality. You came to shape timelines, to broadcast new frequencies into the collective field, to shift your inner state so completely that the outer world has no choice but to respond in kind. This is not about perfection. This is about consistency. Because reality doesn't bend to your affirmations alone, it bends to the vibration you hold between them. It bends to the version of you who no longer needs to be convinced. It bends to the one who doesn't flinch when the old story reappears. It bends to the one who chooses alignment over argument, peace over proof, embodiment over explanation. This is the true essence of being a creator. You stop proving and you start demonstrating. You don't try to convince others of your power, you show them through your energy. You don't try to explain your vision, you embody it. You become the walking, talking resonance of your future. And when you live like that, you start to see something wild unfold. Reality listens. Not occasionally, not by chance, but predictably, because you are now speaking in the language of law, the law of resonance, the law of assumption, the law of reflection. These are not spiritual trends. They are the very architecture of your reality. And when you live as the cause, you step into partnership with those laws. You stop hoping they work. You begin wielding them with precision. And that precision doesn't come from effort. It comes from identity. It comes from the moment you stop saying, "I'll believe it when I see it," and start declaring, "I'll see it because I believe it." It comes from the moment you stop adjusting to conditions and begin generating them. You walk into the room and the energy changes not because you are trying to control it, but because you are radiating coherence. You are no longer influenced by the atmosphere, you set the atmosphere. You are no longer absorbing other people's energy, you are transmitting yours so clearly that theirs begins to shift. This is not ego. This is presence. This is not dominance. This is clarity. This is not force. This is frequency. And the more you trust that frequency, the more you live in alignment with the truth that everything you seek is already here waiting, not for the right opportunity, but for the right vibration. So what do you choose to become the cause of today? Peace? Certainty? Joy? Expansion? Alignment? Because the moment you choose it and live it and speak it and breathe it, you are no longer waiting for life to change. You are being the change. You are becoming the gravitational force, the magnet, the tuning fork. The field itself begins to bend, not to your demands, but to your demonstration. And that's the real secret. The world doesn't obey what you want. It obeys what you are. So become it. Now, no more waiting. No more performing. No more asking life to go first. You go first. You're the cause. And your life is the effect. Chapter 11, Walking with the Energy of Completion. There is a way of moving through life that causes reality to lean in, to yield, to open its vaults and deliver not because you asked more, but because you became more. This way of walking isn't about speed. It isn't about pushing harder. It's about embodying the frequency of the destination before you ever arrive. It's about becoming so vibrationally congruent with the end of your desire that the journey becomes irrelevant. That's what it means to walk in the energy of completion. Completion is not an endpoint in time. It is a state of being. It is the vibration of already done, not imagined, not hoped for, not planned for someday, but done, finished, real. Completion is the frequency that bends the world around you, not through struggle, but through certainty. When you carry the energy of completion, you're no longer reaching forward. You're no longer climbing. You're no longer waiting. You are resonating as the version of you who has already received. And that version, when fully embodied, becomes irresistible to life. But here's the paradox. Most people wait for the evidence of completion before they allow themselves to feel complete. They wait for the contract to be signed before they feel successful. They wait for the partner to arrive before they feel loved. They wait for the money to show up before they feel secure. And in doing so, they radiate incompletion. And what does the field respond to? What does the mirror reflect? More incompletion, more waiting, more almosts, because you don't get what you want, you get what you are. You get the frequency you live in, not the affirmations you repeat. So the great shift happens the moment you stop asking for completion and start embodying it. The moment you stop looking for proof and become the proof. The moment you stop thinking like a seeker and start moving like a receiver. To walk in completion is to drop the narrative of lack. It is to silence the inner story that says, once this happens, I will be. And instead to live in the vibration that says, because I already am, it must happen. This is not pretending, it's not faking it, it's not performance. It is resonance. Resonance with the field of all possibilities. Resonance with the version of you that already exists in the quantum. Because in that field, all outcomes exist now. Every version of you already lives, breathes, walks, and speaks. The you who is whole, the you who is prosperous, the you who is chosen, the you who has already crossed the finish line. You are not becoming them, you are choosing them. And your choice is communicated not by effort, but by frequency. That frequency is what signals the field. That frequency is what causes timelines to bend. So how do you find it? You begin by releasing your identity as someone who is still trying to get there. You begin by catching yourself every time you say, one day. Every time you speak of your desire as future tense. Every time you say, I'll be happy when, and instead you start speaking as the one who already has. You begin choosing your words with the precision of a conscious creator. You stop saying, I want, and you start saying, I receive. You stop saying, it's coming, and start saying, it is done. You stop leaking energy into the illusion of distance, and you bring the vibration here. Now, because reality only responds to now, there is no later in the field. There is only current alignment. So if your current alignment says, I'm almost there, guess what life reflects? Not arrival, not fulfillment, just more almost. Completion is not a reward, it is a choice. It is a posture you assume, a tone you carry, a frequency you stabilize in, and once you stabilize in it, the evidence shows up, not as a reward, but as an echo, not as a surprise, but as a natural outcome of your shift. This is the way of the embodied master. They do not wait for results. They do not negotiate with doubt. They do not shrink for the sake of relatability. They live in completion. They walk as if the manifestation is already woven into their timeline. They speak as if the promise is already fulfilled. They breathe as if the blessing is already here. And the field responds. It always does. Not to words alone, not to logic, not to strategy, but to vibration, to congruence, to embodiment. And here's the deeper gift. When you live in the energy of completion, you no longer need the manifestation. You no longer clutch at it. You no longer negotiate for it. Because you are no longer in relationship with the thing, you are in relationship with the state. And that state, it's enough. It's full. It's whole. It's free. And ironically, it is that freedom, that unshakable sense of inner fulfillment that draws your desire to you faster than anything else. Because you are no longer broadcasting lack, you are no longer emitting the signal of separation. You are radiating the vibration of having. And having begets more having. That's the law. You see, when you walk in completion, life organizes around your energy. People feel you're certain even if they can't name it. Opportunities find you not because you're chasing, but because your field is magnetic. You are no longer performing for outcomes. You are possessing outcomes energetically, emotionally, spiritually. You've arrived. And that arrival, when fully embodied, bends the mirror. Completion is more than a state of receiving. It is the collapse of resistance. It is the end of waiting. It is the death of the story that says, I need this thing to happen before I can become who I truly am. When you walk in the energy of completion, you are not waiting for your desires to make you feel fulfilled. You are already fulfilled. And from that inner abundance, the outer must take shape. The world does not complete you. You complete the world by showing up already whole. And this inner wholeness, this grounded, quiet, unfaltering yes to your visions. Not loud. It doesn't scream, doesn't beg, doesn't grasp. It doesn't need to chant or convince or strive. It just is. It radiates. It broadcasts. It whispers to the universe, I already have it. Therefore, I no longer need to chase it. And with that whisper, reality softens. It relaxes. It opens because you are no longer a frantic signal in the field. You have become the calm center, the eye of the storm, the lighthouse around which the sea rearranges itself. There is an elegance to this kind of power, a grace, a steadiness, not rushed, not trying to get anywhere. Completion has nothing to prove. It is not attached to how or when. It does not beg for updates or check for progress. It knows. But this knowing doesn't come from thinking. It doesn't come from rehearsing affirmations or memorizing teachings. It comes from embodiment. From the choice to live as the version of you who no longer questions whether it's coming because they've already decided that it's done, you stop wondering. You stop searching. You step into the timeline where you are already living it. And everything begins to move around you not because you forced it, but because you became a stable point of alignment in a chaotic world. This is why people who walk in completion appear lucky. Their manifestations arrive without resistance. Their opportunities come without chasing. They say something once, and it arrives. Not because they worked harder, but because their energy was clean, their signal consistent, their state of being resolved. They no longer go back and forth. They no longer second guess. They are not performing faith. They are faith. They have become a living embodiment of the reality they once desired, and so the world reflects it. Now here's what's important to understand. Walking in completion does not mean denying contrast. It doesn't mean ignoring discomfort. It means you stop defining yourself by it. You stop making the temporary moments mean anything about the final outcome. You stop interpreting delay as denial. You stop attaching your identity to evidence. And in that detachment, you find your freedom. You move from being a seeker to being a sovereign. You're no longer waiting for the reflection, you're anchoring the light that produces it. So let me ask you, what if you walk today as if it were already done? What would you wear? How would you speak? How would you move? Who would you text back? And who would you no longer entertain? How would your posture change, your tone shift, your decisions evolve? What would your yes feel like if it came from completion instead of fear? You see, walking in the energy of completion doesn't just change your external life, it changes your internal leadership. You no longer make choices from emptiness. You make them from overflow. You no longer chase validation. You radiate authority. You no longer try to convince anyone of your value. You embody it so clearly that they remember their own. That's the ripple effect of living in completion. You don't just receive your desires. You activate others simply by being. Because energy never lies. People might not understand why they feel safe around you, drawn to you, calmed by you. But on a deeper level, they recognize something rare. Someone who is no longer leaking energy. Someone who is no longer hoping or hiding. Someone who is no longer performing for approval. Someone who is done waiting for permission. This is the power of a being who walks in completion. And here's what happens next. The universe begins to treat you differently, not because it favors you, but because your alignment has changed. You're no longer vibrating at the frequency of maybe. You've stopped oscillating between faith and doubt. You're no longer tuning in and out. You've locked in. You've chosen a timeline, and now life rushes to match it. And yes, it may still take time for the full picture to materialize, but time no longer matters because you're already living the energy. And when you live the energy, you experience the essence. And once you've felt the essence, you no longer depend on the outcome. The outcome becomes inevitable, but not essential to your joy. It becomes a byproduct, not a necessity. And that is when you become free. So many people are chasing things because they think the thing will give them the feeling. But those who walk in completion choose the feeling first, and that is why they get the thing. They embody the end before they arrive at it. And the universe is just a mirror of their certainty. So the invitation is simple. Stop living like it's on the way. Start living like it's here. Stop preparing for your breakthrough. Start living from your breakthrough. Stop treating your dream like a guest that might arrive. Start hosting it in your energy daily, joyfully, unapologetically. Walk like it's done. Speak like it's done. Decide like it's done, not because you're trying to manifest faster, but because you've remembered who you are. The kind of being for whom creation is natural. The kind of soul that doesn't beg for blessings, it becomes the match for them. The kind of presence that doesn't ask reality for proof, it offers proof to reality through the vibration it holds. You are not waiting for the world to catch up. The world is catching up to you because you've stopped waiting for it to change. You've changed. You've shifted. You've aligned. You've walked in completion. And in the language of the universe, that is the final word. Chapter 12. Becoming the embodiment of your vision. There comes a moment in the journey of creation where all seeking dissolves, where all questions lose their urgency, where all longing collapses into a deeper, more powerful state being, not becoming, not hoping, not preparing, but fully, unapologetically being the embodiment of the vision you once chased. This is not the beginning of the path. It is the arrival. And yet, paradoxically, it is the moment when you realize you were always here. The truth was never waiting to be found. It was waiting to be lived. To embody your vision is to step beyond the level of knowing into the dimension of expression. It is no longer about understanding manifestation. It's no longer about fine-tuning your vibration, analyzing your beliefs, scripting your desires. It is about becoming the living proof of your intention, becoming the presence of what you once imagined, becoming the future self now. This is the most potent frequency you can emit because the universe does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. It bends to identity. It obeys state. And when you live as the version of you who already holds the vision, the field must reflect it not because you're manipulating energy, but because you are energy in its most aligned and activated form. But embodiment is not about pretending. It's not about dressing up in the costume of your dream life and reciting affirmations until they feel real. Embodiment is alignment without performance. It's the soft, grounded, magnetic expression of one who has integrated their vision into their being. There is no need to speak about it. No need to convince others of it. It becomes your baseline. It's in the way you breathe, the way you walk, the way you enter a room. Your embodiment speaks before you do, because energy always arrives first. And this is why the final step of true manifestation is not to receive the desire, but to become it. To carry the frequency of your dream with such fidelity that reality has no choice but to reorganize around it. Ask yourself now, if I already had everything I wanted, if the money were here, if the love had arrived, if the vision were fulfilled, who would I be? How would I move? What decisions would I make from that state? Where would I stop settling? What would I no longer tolerate? What boundaries would I uphold not from fear, but from knowing? This is not theory. These are the coordinates of embodiment. The moment you begin making decisions as if it were already done, you activate a new frequency, and that frequency begins magnetizing experiences that match it. But to fully embody your vision, you must release the parts of yourself that were built on waiting, the version of you who waited for permission, who dimmed your light for acceptance, who rehearsed your worth but never lived it. That version cannot walk with your dream. It cannot cross the threshold. It was never meant to. Because the vision you carry is not just about what you'll receive, it's about who you'll become in the process of holding it. It's not about the house, the income, the accolades, the partner. It's about you, the expanded, awakened, limitless version of you who no longer settles for proximity to truth, but becomes the vessel of it. And this becoming is not about more doing. It's about clearer being. It's about energetic integrity. It's about coherence between your inner world and outer actions. Because the version of you who holds the dream lives by different rules. They don't chase. They attract. They don't seek approval. They radiate it. They don't wait for the mirror to change. They change their posture and the mirror obeys. They don't leak energy trying to prove. They conserve energy and let their presence do the talking. This is what it means to walk as the embodiment of your vision. It is not arrogant. It is not loud. It is not performance. It is the quiet power of someone who has chosen, and once you've chosen, you don't look back. You don't explain yourself to the version of you who lived in hesitation. You don't shrink to fit old frequencies. You don't justify your alignment to those who have not yet found theirs. You simply walk. You walk in the frequency. You walk in the decision. You walk in the now. And this decision becomes your new magnetic field. It's not about being perfected, it's about being clear. Because the field doesn't respond to perfection, it responds to clarity. So let this be your question now. Am I being clear with life? Am I moving as if I trust it? Am I speaking from the version of me who already knows? Am I holding my boundaries from a place of wholeness? Am I showing up as the future self I keep trying to manifest? Or am I still relating to the world as the old self-hoping, negotiating, doubting, performing? Only one version creates powerfully. Only one version walks with the field. Only one version is heard by the universe not because they say the right words, but because their signal is undeniable. That is embodiment. And it begins now. To truly embody your vision is to become undeniable not to others, not to the world, but to yourself. It is to reach a level of self-congruence so complete that there is no longer a gap between your intention and your expression. You no longer think like your old self while hoping to live a new life. You no longer dream of becoming. You are becoming in real time with every thought, every breath, every step. You are no longer imagining your desires. You are walking them into form. But this path of embodiment will ask more from you than any technique, any method, or any ritual ever could. It asks for your honesty, your courage, your willingness to be so fully responsible for your frequency that you can no longer blame your environment, your past, or your circumstances for where you are. Because once you step into embodiment, victimhood cannot follow. Complaints lose their flavor. Excuses evaporate. The only thing that remains is your presence and whether that presence is aligned or not. This is why embodiment is not always comfortable. It stretches you, it purifies you, it demands integrity on a level the ego resists. It doesn't allow you to hide behind concepts. It brings you face to face with your patterns. It calls out every moment where you speak one frequency but act another, and not to punish but to refine, to upgrade, to initiate you into the power you claimed you wanted, to ensure that you are not just flirting with transformation, but marrying it. Because when you are the vision, you no longer need to chase it. You stop moving from pressure and start moving from power. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop just talking about abundance and start circulating it through your choices, your words, your boundaries, your generosity, your leadership. You stop trying to prove your worth and start living from it. You stop over-explaining and start being the example. You don't need to say much. Your presence does the work. Your alignment becomes the invitation. Your energy becomes the message. And people feel it. Opportunities feel it. The universe responds not because you said the magic phrase, but because you've become the frequency it recognizes. This is why when you're in full embodiment, life accelerates. Not because you're working harder, but because you've stopped contradicting your signal. You're no longer asking for one thing while feeling another. You're no longer affirming success while expecting delay. You're no longer visualizing love while embodying scarcity. You've synchronized. You've attuned. You've harmonized with the reality you desire. And now, the timeline collapses. Because embodiment is the timeline. It is the portal. It is the moment where time bends around identity. You don't speed up the manifestation by rushing. You speed it up by becoming. And from that embodiment, action becomes joyful. You're no longer acting to force results. You're acting to express alignment. You no longer network out of lack. You show up in rooms you've already claimed vibrationally. You no longer initiate conversations to be chosen. You speak from a place of knowing your presence is enough. You no longer set goals to prove yourself. You move toward them because they are inevitable extensions of your frequency. Every action becomes an echo of a deeper embodiment. And in this way, your outer life becomes a mirror not of your effort, but of your evolution. People will begin to say, something about you is different. And it won't be your clothes, or your tone, or your Instagram page. It will be your field. It will be the stillness you carry, the magnetism in your presence, the way you no longer explain, the way you no longer wait, the way you simply exist as if what you desire is already here. Because in truth, it is. And when you live like it's here, it has no choice but to materialize. Not because you are manipulating it, but because you are no longer delaying it with your doubt. You are no longer repelling it with your unworthiness. You are no longer asking it to prove itself before you're willing to believe. You believe now. You know now. You are now, and the field cannot ignore that. So take this final truth with you. Embodiment is not something you earn. It is something you choose. Right now, in this moment, you can begin walking as the version of you who already has it. Not because you're faking it, but because you're finished waiting. Because the time for becoming is over. You've become, and from this day forward, your vision is not something you chase. It is something you carry in your energy, in your words, in your silence, in your decisions, in your presence, and wherever you go, it will go with you. Because it is no longer an idea. It is no longer a dream. It is no longer a someday. It is you. And you, dear one, are complete. Final chapter. The conclusion, the return to power. This is not the end. It is the return. Not a return to who you were, but to who you've always been, beneath the layers of forgetting, beneath the noise, beneath the proving, beneath the doubt. This book was never about giving you something new. It was about revealing what was already yours. It was about peeling back the veil so you could see clearly your own light, your own voice, your own creative command. It was about reminding you that you were never waiting for permission. You were waiting for remembrance. Now you remember. You are not a seeker anymore. You are not a student trying to master the code. You are not standing outside of your life hoping it will choose you. You are the chooser, the shaper, the architect of experience. You have learned the laws, but more importantly, you have felt the truth. Reality does not move when you beg. It moves when you embody. It responds not to your need, but to your knowing. It shifts not when you ask more clearly, but when you become more clearly. You are not a wish. You are a vibration. You are not your thoughts. You are the frequency behind them. You are not your results. You are the cause of them. And now that you've seen behind the curtain, you cannot go back. The version of you who hesitated, who waited, who wondered if they were worthy, that version has dissolved. Now, there is only you, unfiltered, uncompromised, unapologetic. You walk differently now, not because your steps are louder, but because your presence is clear. Not because you speak more, but because your silence carries weight. Not because you convince anyone, but because your certainty needs no approval. This is the gift of alignment, of embodiment, of conscious creation. It's not about manifesting things so you can feel powerful. It's about becoming so powerful that things naturally align with you. You are no longer chasing timelines. You are anchoring them. You are no longer asking, how long will it take? You are living in the energy of already done. And from this state, reality has no choice but to bend. So as you walk forward from here, walk like it's done. Breathe like you've arrived. Move like you remember. And should the world ever try to convince you otherwise, return here to the voice, to the knowing, to the stillness where it all began, and say it with me now. I no longer seek. I no longer wait. I no longer ask. I am. You have the key. You always did. Welcome back to your power. You are ready now. Go create.